Hello, Mr. Men. What you doing?
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Talking Smack, where we talk superheroes, movies, animation, and comics. I am your host, Josh Scar, and I am joined again this week by Becky. She threatened my life if she could not come back. She had so much fun. Becky, how are you doing?
I'm doing fabulous now that I'm back with you for now.
And I'm happy that my life is no longer in danger for now. And joining us also this week is Matt. Matt, welcome back.
Yeah, glad to be here. My life was never in danger, so I'm good.
I think it's because you're a little bit longer of a drive. She can't quite get to you on a full stomach.
That's
So
true.
Rebecca needs her food.
Don't we all?
You said that, and I was like, I have snacks, but I can't eat them because I'm podcasting. Why did I bring us? All right, prepare yourself a healthy snack for the talking thing you're about to do.
That's what the mute button's for. When you're not talking, you're snacking.
Yeah, let's just assume that.
And speaking of things Rebecca loves, among other things, I know she really enjoys baking, and she enjoys at least one true crime murder podcast, if not two, because she should be enjoying Sugar Coated Murder. They just came out with a book, which we will have a link to their Amazon page for the book in our episode description here this week. Definitely check it out. It's called Click, Click, Click from the Say My Name series, which is a new ongoing series that Karen and Ann will be putting out about true crime murders. And they had a firsthand interview with the murder suspect. And it's a super cool book, and just super cool to know someone who has had a book published on a subject like this, which, Rebecca, you are getting a signed personalized copy from Karen and Ann via me. So there you
When
go.
you said
Happy
that, I was
Christmas.
like, yes, I do love me some murder.
So yeah, that's your Christmas present this year, just so you know. You'll be
I'm
getting
gonna
that in the
I'm gonna
mail.
clip out that bit of audio to be used at your trial.
Yeah, that's fine. I, Rebecca Roman, killed Matt, and I would do it again.
I
You can
love
use that one
her.
too.
But if you have a true crime podcast lover in your life, definitely check out Sugar Coated Murder, because among other things, they also bake delicious treats to coincide with their stories, and also get them a book, because reading is fun and reading is fundamental, I guess, to pull out an old fun edutainment line. But
Edutainment.
everyone's favorite form of education.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember the Back to the Future animated series, but that was one of the worst ones with edutainment, where they're like, "Oh, it's Back to the Future, but we're gonna teach you shit." And like, I don't want that. I just want fun adventures with Doc and Marty.
Yeah, get out of here. I don't want to learn life lessons.
The only thing I remember about that cartoon is an episode where Doc Brown came up with a way to like push a button and the whole car like collapsed into like a suitcase or like a box or something. And Marty tried to pick it up and he was like, "This thing weighs a ton." And Doc Brown was like, "Yeah, there's a car in there."
So what the hell's the point of the suitcase?
That's the joke.
I like it. So we're going to take a quick ad break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about what you doing. So we're going to hear from our friends Dan and Lou over at Casting Views. We'll be right back.
I'm Dan.
I'm Lou, and together we are Casting Views.
An uncle and nephew chatting on random topics, some heavy, some fun, but we aim to amuse.
Don't miss out, don't delay. Subscribe to Casting Views today.
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and Good Pods.
And we're back. We're here to do another episode of What You Doing, another volume of What You Doing, whatever you want to call it. Another installment. Yeah, installment. That would be a good one. Another installment of What You Doing, where we just talk about the things we're enjoying away from podcasting life and put it into the podcast, because everything is content now.
Very, very true.
I'm going to get us started here. I'm going to do a couple of real quick What You Doings, because one I don't want to spoil, and the other one I just started. So the one I just started is the new Wednesday series on Netflix. There's two things in this series so far that I'm nitpicking, because otherwise everything else is really solid through the first episode. One, I really cannot get behind Luis Guzman as Gomez Adams. I have Raul Julia as Gomez, and I'm blanking on his name right now. I'll look it up while maybe someone else interjects here. But the guy from the original series, and then the voice just doesn't fit. John Aston is from the '60s series. That was more of a sitcom.
Well, I haven't seen the show, I'll say, but you go back and look at some of those old Addams Family cartoons. He's not deceptively handsome or suave in those cartoons.
You're right, and like the new series, or not series, animated movie with Oscar Isaac as Gomez, but like he still has the voice. Like there's still something to him that makes him feel suave. I have Raul Julia and John Aston in my head that like they're not necessarily like generic CW guy handsome, but they still have like this undertone of like you could definitely see how they could land Angelica Houston, or in this case Catherine Zeta-Jones. But I don't know, Luis Guzman just he doesn't hit that Gomez Adams feeling for me, but that's not to say that he does a bad performance. He's not really in it, but it's just something that doesn't appeal to me as far as someone who grew up on the 90s movies. But the other thing is, minor spoiler alert, there's a monster in this series that's going to probably linger for a while. And it's the most Tim Burton looking thing I have seen in a long time. Like if you think of like, oh, Tim Burton designed this, you probably know what this monster looks like.
Is it supposed to be like a actually scary TV show, or like in the vein of like Stranger Things, or is it a little easier than that?
It feels more like the 90s movies.
Okay.
And the aesthetic is kind of in that vein too, where it's not exactly Beetlejuice. It is very much its own thing, but you can kind of see where Tim Burton could fit into this series. But the aesthetic of the entire show so far, up until you see that monster, you're like, oh, this isn't very Tim Burton. Like maybe the dialogue, and obviously Wednesday Addams kind of fits that like stereotypical Tim Burton idea. But there's nothing else in the series that is like, oh, this is very much Tim Burton, until that monster shows up. And then you're like, oh God, that's Tim Burton just showed up and he vomited all over the place.
So I don't have the internet, so I haven't like done anything particularly interesting. But I kept seeing like all the ads for it, and I was like, I still have never actually actively participated in anything Adams Family other than listening to the remix of the theme song while I'm coaching classes because it's hilarious.
I would give Wednesday, at least through the pilot episode, a very strong recommend.
Mm.
It's engaging. I think Jenna Ortega as Wednesday is interesting. When the original synopsis came out, where it's like, oh hey, a grown up Wednesday Adams has superpowers where she can see the future and she's going to be a detective and solve mysteries. I was like, this sounds like such bullshit. And it's obviously been refined, and she's going to a like boarding school for outcasts, so she's surrounded by like werewolves. It's very CW as well. Like it's, if
Damn it.
CW could swear, it's kind of in that vein, but it's done well, at least through the pilot. The mysteries surrounding it is engaging. I think it's better than what the original description came out with. And like they were really hyping Tim Burton's involvement in this, which it seems like maybe he's just kind of a glorified executive producer that they were like, hey, we have this show that we want to get off the ground. If you were to come and at least direct the pilot, and then you just detach yourself from it, besides getting a residual check for being an executive producer, we
Yeah.
would greatly appreciate it. And he's like, okay, but can I design a monster? I'm like, fine.
Yeah, I got it. Don't worry. Well, I mean, it makes sense. Yeah, you say Tim Burton, and you have a whole section of people who are like, I don't care what it is. I'm going to watch it and say that it's the best thing ever.
15 years ago, I was one of those people too, but I kind of got sick of him pretty quick after that. He just could not make a good movie to save his life. And at least he directed a pretty solid pilot episode for this. But the other thing, really quickly, the Founders Edition of Infernal Girl Red came out in the last couple weeks. And I burned through that. And I don't want to spoil anything because they are releasing it in a 3-part single issue series starting in January. So if you have not put it on your pull list, strongly recommend adding it. From Matt Groom and Erica D'Urso, part of the Radiant Black universe. So good. I love Cassia, and the aesthetic of the costume, and just the story that they tell in this origin story is fantastic. That's all I'm really going to get into, unless Matt or Becky have questions about it that I won't spoil too much. But is a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed reading it, and I strongly recommend adding it to your pull list for 3 months while they release it in that 3-part series.
I have none.
No questions.
All right, no follow-up questions. Matt, what you doing?
My first thing is maybe the thing that I love the most in the world right now, and that is Andor. Andor rules. If you don't know what it is, either anyone on this call or anyone here listening, Andor is the most recent Disney Plus Star Wars show that serves as a, it's reductive to put it this way, but it's a prequel to the movie Rogue One, which featured a character called Cassian Andor, and it's sort of about how he becomes involved with the Rebel Alliance, but it's like way more than that. Before I get ahead of myself, first I want to shout out a podcast called A More Civilized Age, which I'm shouting out because they're ostensibly a Clone Wars rewatch podcast, but they took a break from that to cover Andor weekly. And so I've been listening to that as these episodes come out, and almost certainly their thoughts, their observations, their analysis has seeped into my brain. So, like, almost assuredly accidentally, I'm going to end up stealing stuff from them. So, sorry to them. Shout outs. It's a great podcast. You should go listen to it.
So before you go too far here, what are their thoughts on bricks and screws existing in the Star Wars universe?
Yeah, you asked the worst person, Josh.
They have no thoughts because it doesn't matter.
No, for those that don't know, there's a Star Wars YouTube channel that I'm not going to drop the name of because they don't need the. If you want to look it up, you can, but I'm not going to publicize them here. But they're a bunch of idiots and assholes who just they're just trying to get rage clicks and views. Their opinions mean nothing, and they're just trying to aggravate the Star Wars fandom. But Matt, please continue.
Well, I will say this. When you die and your custom is that your ashes are pressed into a brick to be placed in a wall, that's a really good tool for bashing someone's head in, which is a thing that happens in this show and it rules.
That is a great moment.
Anyway, this show rules. It is the best. I'm someone who likes a lot of the Disney Plus Star Wars stuff so far. Like, I know that they have their detractors. I've generally enjoyed most of it. This is the best thing they've done, like, by far. It's not even close. It's probably the best thing that they have done, maybe even since like the original trilogy, is how good it is, give or take a Last Jedi, which I adore. It's just like, it is so dense and it is so textured, and it's rich. It's like full of interesting characters, full of like, it's asking questions about the Star Wars universe and how it operates that you don't see interrogated that often. Like, it's a show that is about, like, how do people survive living through fascism? How do people push back against it? It's looking at like some of the ways that like capitalist systems and like police forces often align themselves with fascism once it arrives. The importance of like strong community bonds just in general and in combating those things. Like I was talking about, that the moment with the brick, that is like, it sounds weird, but it is a moment that is like informed so much by like this community we have seen developing. Like, it's a cool thing. Like, this guy has this brick and he's like, oh, it's going down, time to bash somebody's head in. But it is full of so much meaning that, like, if you haven't seen it, that sounds absurd. I realize that. but it is. It's interested in like how these resistance movements kind of form and how they like coordinate. There's stuff in the show about how it's sort of at a time before the Rebel Alliance has really like coalesced, and you get references to like all of these various like factions of people who like hate the Empire and are fighting the Empire, but also they don't necessarily agree with each other. They don't even necessarily like each other. So it's like, which is a thing that happens in real life with like real resistance movements, where like there's always like factions that come to like intellectual disagreements and they hate each other for reasons both good and bad. And it's just like, it's really like, it is coming to this universe that is like, okay, how does this stuff happen in real life? And like, let's analyze it through that Star Wars lens. Like, so much of it is inspired by real world movements. it feels like it's a Star Wars thing that's about something other than Star Wars, which is like not a thing that happens very often. Even though I like a lot of Star Wars stuff, a lot of its references are tend to be other Star Wars things. But this is like,
It's very much its own thing. It's an insular story that tells this idea of Cassian becoming a rebel agent, and like him understanding that his life is essentially forfeit anyway with
Ooh.
the Empire, so he might as well do something of value with it.
yeah, and it's just a thing that is, it's just incredible to watch this thing that, I don't think anybody, when they were like, we're doing a prequel about the secondary character from a Star Wars spin-off movie, I don't think anyone was like, wow, that's exactly what I wanted.
Mhm.
But it is like, it's full of like, every single character in the show is like interesting and complex and layered. Even the ones who are like total evil bastards, you like get to know them and you understand what makes them tick. Places feel lived in. Like one of the main planets is a place called Ferrix, and it is just like, it feels like a place people live, people work, people, it feels like a community. Coruscant is a planet we've seen a ton, but this is like the first time it has ever felt like a place that is built with people living in it and working in it in mind. Like it feels like a city with intentional architecture. It's not just like a bunch of weird space buildings or temples and stuff. Um, I could go on forever, but it's just like, it's just incredible. It's the best Star Wars thing in a long time.
Yeah, I can agree with that wholeheartedly. It's definitely, if it's not better than The Mandalorian, it's like right there alongside it. And this show did definitely kind of Mandalorian me, because if you go way back to like episode 5 or something of the podcast back in when we started in 2017, we got news that The Mandalorian came out, and I was like, I don't give a shit about the Mandalorians. I
Yeah.
How are you going to make me care about this society of people that are essentially going extinct? And sure enough, episode 1, I'm like, I'm all in. Let's go. Let's
Yep.
find out what's happening here. And Andor did the same thing. I just from episode they released the first 3 episodes together, which is like its own little mini movie, and you're like, "Yeah, okay, let's do this thing. Let's find
Yeah.
out more."
Yeah. And it's really smartly, it's sort of taking the approach that Clone Wars does a lot in terms of the way it's structured, where it's sort of broken up into arcs where it's all essentially one story, but it's like, here's the opening arc, here's what happens next, here's another arc that are like connected, but it's sort of like a, for the most part, not entirely, but like trios of episodes that tell segments of this story.
Mhm.
But it's just like something that I've wanted a long time from Star Wars that you don't always get, is like a thing, the Star Wars universe is, you watch those original movies and you get the feeling that this place is huge, that there's all kinds of things happening in this world there, that it can support all kinds of stories. And so often it all ends up coming back to,
Jedi and the Force and all that.
yeah, the stuff that does make Star Wars unique. Granted, like laser swords are cool, people doing flips is cool, or the same set of characters. Like it was a running joke before Disney that in the expanded universe, every single character that ever showed up in a shot in Star Wars had a deep and compelling backstory, and also somehow they were tied to Han Solo. Like, it's just, and I love the Mandalorian, but that's a thing that happens in that show too, where like by the second season it is tying itself into the main movies. It's tying itself into like Clone Wars stuff. It's none of that is in Andor. Like aside from the fact that we know it in a larger way ties into this movie that came out 6 years ago now. Jesus. Aside from that, it's not like the Jedi are never mentioned. I don't think the Force is barely mentioned, if it is at all. Like it is doing exactly that thing that I've wanted for so long, where it's telling this story that you don't see that often. I like a lot of the Dave Filoni stuff, but for a long time, he's been like the main creative force in Star Wars. And it's just refreshing to see somebody else step into this universe and be like, let's tell a different kind of story. And it's something I think Star Wars can handle a lot more than it does. And that's one of the reasons the show is so refreshing, on top of the fact that it is so fucking good.
Yeah, it's a show that relied heavily on the content of the story, and not just like padding out some fan
Yep.
service of like, oh, Ahsoka's here. Oh, here's some clones. Here's Han Solo. Here's a mention of the Millennium Falcon. There's none of that. It's just its own thing, and it works so well.
Okay, so coming from the girl who does not understand Star Wars, I don't get it. I don't get it. George Lucas is not a good writer. If I have to watch the original movies and people have to tell me the entire time, well, this part's not good, but okay, well, this is kind of like this is kind of weird, but well, it should have been this. That I'm like, then this is not a good movie. Why am I watching this? And then I did the opposite of Josh, where I was like, I don't really care about like the Mandalorian specifically. I was like, but this looks like interesting. I think I'll watch it. And in the first episode, I was like, this is not good. I do not enjoy this at all. I did not like it. I tried so hard. I watched like 5 episodes.
You had the worst person to introduce you to
I
Star
did. That's
Wars.
true.
You sounded like you were set up for a question there. Did you have one?
My question is, how do you think that I would relate to this new one? Because like you're saying, it's a little bit, if it's a little bit less like, all right, reference to this and reference to that and reference to this, and a little bit more just like, here's the world of Star Wars, here is it fleshed out, and then also this is like the situation that's going on. I did like Rogue One. I did.
I would say, there are certain things, like there are ways that they fit in like little references, but it's mostly like stuff that it's background, and unless you're like really into it, you're not going to notice. It's not going to detract from anything. One of the characters is like a guy who has a front as like an antiques dealer, right? So they put in like a lot of like old props and stuff that are like, oh hey, Easter eggs, but it's not like they're like, oh by the way, as you know, Obi-Wan Kenobi said XYZ in Phantom Menace or shit. Anyway, I think that if you're not a person who likes Star Wars, all you need to really know is
You're
that
wrong.
there is an evil empire, or there's an empire, an oppressive fascist regime that is like doing its fascist regime thing, and that there are people who are living under the yoke of that. And I think if you have that, you can get by. And as long as if you're aware of that, and that people zip around space and have like laser guns and stuff, you're there. If you can get past that, I think you can appreciate
Well,
the
see, and
show.
that's not even, I don't even need to get past that. Like, that shit's cool. Like, that shit I like. I just have really never met a character that I actually give a shit about in the, like, I don't know. I just am always like, these are not, I'm not that interested. Every single person is, like, incredibly tragic for the most part. But I really liked Rogue One. That was the one that I was like, all right, I can get down with this.
Yeah, I think if that's what you're looking for, like I said, every character in the show is really interesting and complex. You have like one of the main antagonists is a woman who works like intelligence for the Empire. So she's like a she's a bad guy. Like she's working for the fascists, but she is a complex character who like part of her story is about how she's trying to, she is a newish person in this competitive environment that is also mostly dominated by like old men who've been there for a long time. So it's like, she is the person who is like warning of an impending like coalescent rebellion against the empire, also trying to like make her bones, and then um get people to listen to her. So like it's a weird thing where she is objectively on the side of the bad guys, but also you're like, okay, I see where like her story is, I'm understanding her motivations and where she hooks into it. And as her story progresses, it's like it's very interesting. So like there is a turn where like there comes a point where it's like, oh, you are an evil bastard. They lulled me into a sense of security with you where like you can almost forget that she's a fascist, because so much of her story is like, oh, she's the underdog here, and then when the turn comes, you're like, oh shit, yeah, now you made me think you were you made an interesting character who then turns out to be a total bastard. In the long run, there's like stuff where it is about some of the fundamental Star Wars stuff in terms of, there's a Rebel Alliance. How does that happen? But it's not doing the thing that Star Wars often does, where it's like if you're not in it, if you can't deal with a certain level of like dorky bullshit, you can't get into it. Like I would say you should give it a shot. If by the end of those first 3 episodes you're not into it, maybe it's not for you, but lots of interesting characters, lots of interesting like interpersonal relationships and conflicts that I think it feels dismissive of like The Mandalorian and other shows that I like to say this, but it's like, what if Star Wars did a real TV show?
Which I'm like, that's probably more my. I always try with everything Star Wars. I always give it a shot, but every time I'm just like, why can't the writing be a little less cheesy? I just don't understand.
The writing is fucking good, and like I said, there is just like stuff that they like. There's a whole arc in the middle of this show that is about basically a heist. Like they have to rip somebody off for reasons that I won't get into in case you watch it.
A heist.
But
It's a good heist.
it's great. It fucking rules. But one of the things I was reading this week is that the creator of the show, Tony Gilroy, who's a guy who's done movies, he wrote something to do with Rogue One as well. I don't know what, that movie had a complicated development, so I don't know like how much he was actually involved. But he said a thing where like the whole heist is like based on a real thing that happened like the early 1900s, where like a bunch of socialists did a big heist to fund their operations, and like that's fucking
really
cool. Where you are taking, like I said, it's like a thing where you're looking at the world of Star Wars that has set up Evil Empire, Rebel Alliance, and you're asking these questions and taking inspiration from real things of like, how do people operate when they are in these situations, which has happened in the real world. A minor spoiler for that heist is that they steal a bunch of money and then somebody gets crushed by it. Literally, somebody is crushed under the weight of capitalism in the show.
That's amazing.
It's tragic, but it is also like when you see it and you're like, oh, I see. Gee, man, that's so fucking good. I could talk about the show for hours, and I know I've talked about it a lot already. I could not give it a high recommendation, even if you don't like Star Wars. If you're into some of the basics, that's all you need to know.
Right, I'm gonna add it to my to watch list. That's what I was writing down.
I think you should put it at the top of your to
It's
watch
the only
list.
thing on
but
my
I
to
won't go
watch
too
list
hard.
right now.
Perfect.
I would say as long as you understand that there's now an evil empire and like there's remnants of the previous republic with like senators and stuff, that's all you really need to know. Everything else is just kind of icing on the cake and just it's all delicious.
I'm gonna get real close to the mic right now and say something that is I'm not gonna dwell on this too much because I know I've already gone on too long. It's not the remnants of the Republic. The Republic was already the Empire. Let's get real.
Oh my
Boom,
god!
bang, boom. Goodbye.
Wow, that was a revolution. I feel it in my bones.
Anyway,
Becky,
indoor rules.
what are you doing?
Well, if you're asking what I'm doing right now at this moment, I am the little spoon, and my dog is now the big spoon. He has moved up from his position on he was like resting on my hip. He's got a paw on each shoulder, and his nose is on the back of my neck. I don't understand what he's doing, but it's hilarious.
The remit of the show is it's things that we enjoy. So, like, are you enjoying
Am I
that?
enjoying it? Of course. It's the best.
Yeah. Okay,
I don't
good.
know how nerdy
Good.
it is. It's probably a little dirty that I love my dog this much because he's the best. Okay, well, what I'm doing right now, I have two, I remember, very absolute things that make no sense, but I remember I wanted to talk to you guys, ask you about a movie that I watched that I missed, because I am not a big watcher of movies, especially older movies. I have very particular tastes. I watched recently Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. Do either of you remember
Oh.
that?
I'm aware of it, but
I've
I've never
seen
seen it.
Yeah.
Jinx, Matt, you owe me a soda.
I'm not gonna do that.
No, fine.
So it's very bad. It's not good. I think the main lady got like a Razzie for her performance or something. Like it was one of those. But it was just like I don't watch kind of that old like campy horror movie stuff. Like it's from the 80s, so it's just not my thing. But I watched it as for Halloween because it like my TV was very like rarely connected to my little hotspot or whatever, so it like popped up a local thing channels, and I was like, oh shit, I can see what's going on because I just moved and I don't know any of these local channels here, and I saw this on like one of their like Halloween spooky whatevers. But as I was watching it, I was just like, oh my god, this is the be like people who like this are so nerdy because it's just a lady with big giant boobs living her magic secret dark life.
You love to see it.
It was quite fabulous.
You simply love to see it.
Yeah, I don't hear the problem with this, Rebecca.
It was well, the plot is I don't even understand, but
You already mentioned the plot. It's Elvira.
Elvira, she wants to open her show in Las Vegas. She needs like $50,000, and then she gets like her like aunt dies or something like Morgana, so she's like, all right, sweet. She goes to Massachusetts to like get her inheritance, and there's like there's like a mansion and a book involved. Oh, there is a poodle, and the poodle's name is Algonquin, which I was all about. And then of course nobody likes her because she's worldly and she's very wears very revealing clothes, so all the townspeople are like, man, this lady's crazy. But if you've never seen it and you like 80s movies, I think it's worth watching. It was very, very funny and like enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, there's a really great time in the 80s for like that niche camp horror movie stuff. Like I have the vaguest memories of what Attack of the Killer Tomatoes is about. I remember they made a 90s animated series out of it, but like I remember watching it, which John Astin I believe is also in that. Those kind of movies can be fun if you're in the right frame of mind for it.
Exactly. And like it was just one of those things where I didn't go out of my way to find it. I didn't like no one, it all just kind of happened, and it was like a fun night at home like watching this like super campy movie, and it was especially an 80s movie, and I was like, all right, like I'm down for this. This is pretty cool. That was my very exciting thing I did for Halloween.
All right.
Rebecca, the young single woman in the American Midwest, just staying at home, snuggling her dog, watching Elvira.
Pretty much. The snuggle is intense right now. It's the best. I don't he's
Sometimes you
like
gotta do it.
I'm all about my mom.
All right. Well, we'll swing it back to me. And another thing that I am doing is I just watched last night actually The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, starring
Oh,
Nicolas Cage
how
and
was
Pedro
that?
Pascal. It was so good. I cannot stress this enough. Like we've seen some of these meta movies where actors are like, "Oh, I'm kind of hitting a lull in my career, but I don't want to call it a career. Let's make a movie about me that's fictional, but it's insane in its fictionality." And it's so much fun. Like Nicolas Cage is fun, and like I think the only thing that this movie did that I wish it would have done more of is reference Nicolas Cage's love of Superman, because he famously has a son named Kal-El,
Oh yes.
and and there's no Superman in this because it's fictional. Like he's married to a woman that I don't believe is actually his wife, and he has a teenage daughter who's like getting close to graduating high school, and like that's his only child, which I believe he has two or three kids in real life. But it's kind of what I wanted the Weird Al movie to be, where like it's just this insane fictionalized version of his life, but it's done in a really fun and meta way. Part of the plot is he ends up writing a script with Pedro Pascal's character, who he believes to be a drug lord, and that the CIA. This is all in the trailer, by the way. This isn't spoilers. That the CIA believes to be a drug lord, and he's kidnapped like a presidential candidate's daughter from his country, and the movie plays out with Nicolas Cage being like, I don't think it's him, but it's probably him because he's so weird. And like every time I interact with him, like there's something that's like, I could construe that as being violent. So it plays off on a lot of really fun meta comedy things. And again, it's Nicolas Cage just getting to be Nicolas Cage. And it was just a lot of fun. And I strongly recommend it. I don't know if it's one of those movies that it's like, I feel like watching The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. Like I feel like this is a movie I need to watch every other time, but like I think you could watch this movie like once every 5 to 10 years and be like, that was fun.
Yeah, I saw trailers for it. I don't go to the movies that often anymore. But I saw trailers for it and it looked really interesting, but I did not get around to actually seeing it yet. So that's good to hear a recommendation.
It's streaming on Stars, so if you can find a good like Black Friday or Cyber Monday deal, I'd recommend getting that like 1 month or 3 month free that they offer,
All right.
and just check it out.
All right.
Geez, so weird. I was like, I remember watching the trailer and being like, hey, you know what? I like Nick Cage. I'm down for that.
You know what? I feel like Pedro Pascal is like an actor who is. It's weird because he's not underrated, but I feel like he does not like get.
Underutilized?
Maybe he's in the Mandalorian. He's great in that, but like he's just an interesting actor. Like he was in Wonder Woman 1987, which is a bad movie, but he's great in it. He's just like he's got so many different modes. It feels like that.
He's underappreciated within the community, maybe, or not necessarily like the community, because like people who know him like him,
Yeah,
but like within like the acting and like Hollywood circles, like it doesn't seem like he's taken seriously as an actor, but he's
maybe
in
that's
all
it.
of these high quality shows and movies that it's like he's good.
Yeah, I feel like he's got a wide. Maybe he's got a wide range that does not always feel like is the thing you think about first when you hear, oh, Pedro Pascal is going to be in something. Because like all of these, I haven't seen this movie, but all the roles that I've seen him in are all like so different from each other. It's really great.
But yeah, Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, strongly recommend it. Matt, what you doing?
My second thing is maybe the other most obvious thing if you know me at all. I'm playing a lot of Pokemon.
What?
The new Pokemon game Scarlet and Violet just hit. I'm playing Violet, and I am enjoying it quite a bit.
So the important question right off the bat is, which starter did you choose?
Well, that's a great question, and I got an answer, a definitive answer, and then
Matt went and bought 2 extra Switches so he could have all the starters and
Yep.
just play.
Yes.
well, that's the second part of my answer. My answer is I don't know quite how to say it. Sprigiato, which is the grass
The
type
cat.
cat who looks like he's got a little pot leaf on his head.
Yes.
However, thanks to the wonders of the internet, half of my team is starters. So I was able to get my hands on the other two thanks to trading, thanks to random swaps, things like that. So I definitely had a strong preference when I chose, but I'm rocking all of them right now. If you don't know Pokemon for some reason, the biggest thing in the world, it's a game where there's all these cute creatures that have powers. They're called Pokemon. Every game is about you going around and capturing them, things like that, and building a team. It's like it's an RPG. This newest game is one of the first ones that sort of sets it in sort of an open world where the whole thing is that you are a student at a school and then you're sort of basically released into like a study abroad program where it's like go find your bliss basically.
You're 10. You're all right. You can go and be independent.
Yeah, it takes the normal like tenets of most of these Pokemon games. Like in most of these games, you have to go and fight what's called gym battles, which is like every town has a gym leader who specializes in a certain type. They're basically a boss. They give you a badge that you get all 8 badges, and then you can go fight the last boss, which is called the Elite Four. There's almost always like a team of criminals or some ne'er-do-wells who are trying to do something, either steal Pokemon or mess people's days up or whatever. And there's like other little things, but they've taken all of these normal facets of Pokemon games and sort of been like, okay, you can go and just do these. Like, if you want to focus on the gym leader stuff, you can. If you want to focus on fighting its team star in this game, you can. There's a whole thing where there's a guy who's like looking for what are called Titan Pokemon, which are just like big ass versions of Pokemon. You can go fight those as like sort of boss battles, and that's one of the ways you like unlock traversal upgrades for your like mount Pokemon. So that's how you like get the flying and the surfing and stuff. It's got all those elements of any given Pokemon game, but it's sort of in this more open structure. And I'm just loving the hell out of it. I've liked every Pokemon game. I played all of them because I'm, a 30-something-year-old child. But this one really got its hooks into me.
See, I've been trying to resist the urge to find a Switch, and you're not making that easy.
Well, if it helps, I will say, it's not a perfect game. If you're following sort of the discourse around the game, a lot of people are having like major technical issues with the game. I've not run into any so far, but like huge glitches that are just like, I don't think anything game breaking, but just really weird stuff that I don't know if the game was rushed. I don't know if it is a thing where the game is just like, if the games are starting to outpace what the Switch can do. But it's definitely not necessarily a smooth experience a lot of people are having. Like I said, I've not seen anything huge or major on my end, like nothing where it's like, oh, your character disappeared and where are you?
Well, if it was gonna happen to anybody, it's gonna happen to me, right, Josh?
Right.
Yeah, of course.
And some of that is I also think that like they're not really haven't never really done an open world game like this before. They've done some games that sort of dabble in that kind of thing, but it would make sense to me if there was an entirely new engine here that maybe has some of its own bugs.
I will say the only thing that I've seen that I think is like a legitimate complaint, besides just like the craziness that can happen with some of these glitches, is with Pokemon Legends Arceus that came out earlier this year. I liked the idea of just being able to throw the Pokeball and capture a Pokemon while you're just running through the world, instead of engaging in a battle, choosing to throw the Pokeball, and then doing the Pokeball sequence. I think that's like the only legitimate complaint I've seen about this game, besides like performance issues of like frame rates and texturing and all that sort of stuff. But again, that's maybe they program the game beyond what the Switch is capable of. Who knows?
Yeah.
But hopefully they will actually patch it and fix it.
Well, I mean, they did at least one update on day one, so I would not be surprised if some of that was to address performance stuff, because a lot of this stuff was like people like review copies and stuff. So maybe a lot that happens a lot in games now, where a game ships and maybe it's kind of busted, and they're like, okay, well, on day one we got to push out a patch that fixes some of that stuff.
Well, that's the kind of thing I was thinking too. Like, if there are big major issues like that, by the time I would even be getting to it, that it's possible stuff like that could be, patched up or fixed.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, to your point, Josh, I totally get that. As some people are frustrated with it too. I haven't minded it too much. Like I get that, but I'm just like, that's part of the Pokemon game.
And yeah, it is what it is. The last time I played, like really, really played Pokemon and got into it, I was just thinking an Easter egg that you will both appreciate. That's not really an Easter egg, but it is for specifically for us. Is that if you're down and you're by like the fisherman? I'm trying to think. It was on my 3DS. Where all the fishermen are, you can fight one of them, and his name is Shad. Right? I was like,
Oh, Shad.
I took a picture and like he does that, he's like looking over his shoulder like they do in the little cutscenes, and I was like, oh my god, it's a Shad! Like, what are the chances? So that's my very fondest Pokemon memory.
I got my dog from Shad.
My fondest Shad memory is the time I had a gun pointed at my face while he was there.
You just had to bring it up.
Yeah, of course I did. Anyway,
You can't just let it go. It's like a traumatic event in his life. My God.
anyway, I'm enjoying the game so far, and it's just one of those things where, kind of like Pokemon Legends Arceus, which is a game that came out earlier this year, that sort of, like you were alluding to, Josh, did some of that more open world stuff, but it was a little more structured in that you're going to like sort of open zones. This is a lot more like a lot less segmented anyway, but it's like that in that you're just running around, and you're not running through the tall grass and waiting for the random encounter. You're just seeing the Pokemon sort of roam, and then if you want to try and fight them, if you want to try and catch them, you can initiate the battle, you can avoid them. It's just really, some people are having problems with it, and I get that. I have not experienced anything major, so far I'm just having a blast with it. They added online co-op, which I've only dabbled in a little bit, but it's really interesting when I've played, where it's like up to 4 people can like just jump into a world together. I've done it with one other person, and if you want, those 2 people or those 4 people can just go off in any direction, and like, oh, I've got my own stuff to do over here. You've got your own stuff to do over here. See you later. So it's just there's a lot of interesting things about it, and it's really, after we're finished doing this, I'll probably go play some more. So
Well, Becky, what you doing?
The game I'm playing right now is Final Fantasy X. on
Nice.
my Xbox One, and I just love that game. I just love it. Have you ever play it?
My relationship with that game is weird because I've owned it like 5 times,
It's one of
and
those.
yeah, each time I have gotten a bit farther and still have never beaten it. But I really, I used to hate it because I used to be like, oh, the voice acting, I prefer Final Fantasy 9 or whatever. But I've really come around on it. It's a great game.
It is. I have my like original game guides, and it is one of my
Nice.
favorite
I've got one.
things. What?
I think I've got one too, actually.
It is one of my favorite things to like sit down and I like go through the guide with it. The only thing I did realize like this time around is that they have the monster arena, and like
Yeah,
you get tasked with it, but you're thinking like I'm in the I'm already really close to the end of like walking through the world itself on foot, and then you get the airship and all that nonsense. But like, yeah, after I got that part, I got the airship. I'm like through, that's all. Everything's happening. I was like, there is the sheer amount of things that are left to do, like just side quest wise. Like to even just fight one of the monsters in the monster arena and not get absolutely pummeled is insane to me, because
yeah,
like right now I'm strong enough to go through, finish the game, have it be done. But there are, I mean, the hours that I would have to put in to like really like get everyone level up, even to beat the Dark Aeons, which is a new
yep.
feature in the remastered games. They are impossible. And I'm just like, I'm gonna do all this. There's 10% of the story left. Like, like I do
Yeah.
all this, and then I'm gonna like hop back into the story, and I'm like, wait, what the fuck was I doing? That's it's a little weird to leave that much to the end.
The last time I tried to play it was when the PS4 remaster came out, the Final Fantasy X and X-2 collection, and I was like, I am finally gonna finish this game. I'm gonna do everything. I'm gonna get all the weapons, and then I started like looking into like what you had to do to like get the weapons,
Oh, the
and I was like,
celestial weapons, I know. Oh my god.
yeah, and like get all the Aeons and stuff, and I was like, actually, I think I'm good. I'm just gonna beat it, and then I didn't beat
The
it.
Aeons aren't that bad. All that can be done pretty smoothly. That's the one like side quest that you can do it. It's not bad, and then you feel kind of cool because you have all of them.
Yeah,
I will never get the celestial weapons. I will never do it. I think I might have had one single playthrough where maybe I unlocked like maybe Riku's, but it was only one because yeah, the tasks they set for you. What?
Final Fantasy good actually.
But I do, which, and you know what this means, that once I'm done with 10, I'm gonna slide my happy ass over into 10 too.
Yeah. Oh
Because
yeah.
I don't care what people
Use your
say.
strategy guide for that
I'm
one
gonna
too.
use my strategy guide. The other day I was on the ground. I was in my living room, laying on the carpet. I was like on my stomach. I had my feet, I was kicking them in the air behind me, flipping through the pages of my Final Fantasy 2 10-2 game guide. And
That's adorable.
I was like, what am I doing? This has got to be like but I was just reading all the dress spheres and like reading all the items and getting all excited for the game coming up, and I was just like, oh my god. But I like that game. I don't care what anybody says. It's fun.
I think that game, I've never played 10-2 myself. It was one of those things where I have a copy of it now, but I was like, I'm going to play 10 and finish it, and then I'm going to play 10-2, and then I never finished 10. But I think in recent years, especially since that remaster has come out, a lot of people are like, oh, actually, that game is good.
Like I get that there are definitely some like super cheesy moments, but also that it's just Final Fantasy. Like there are
Yeah.
ridiculously cheesy. How many times are you trying to just like play and Titus is like, my old man, and you're like, we get it, you have a father complex, like we understand, but it's like that's his thing. And like the worst thing of 10-2, the hands down worst part of all that entire game is when you're trying to find out the ciphers in one section here, which it's not difficult, it's very easy, no spoilers or anything. And then out of nowhere, Riku just goes, monkey! But like the lips on her character just keep moving and it's really badly animated. It's just super, super terrible. but the
I love
rest of
that.
it is just precious.
I love that. Final Fantasy good, actually. I say that as someone who has logged, I think, 2 full weeks of his life into Final Fantasy 14. So take that as you will.
Take that as you will. I just like it was that was like a section of gaming that I think got me into games, which is why I liked it so much.
Yeah,
But we actually, my mom and my sister are the ones that picked the game out for me. But they saw the girls on the cover and they were like, "Well, we have this PlayStation 2. We only have we have like a fighting game, a racing game, whatever." So my mom's like, "Hey, like check out this game. It's got these girls. I don't know, like try it." And I just remember like we plugged it in, we hooked it up, and that's when we had like the most massive TV, like the giant big boxes that they used to have. But at the time, it was like, oh my god, you guys have like a 60-inch TV, like that's crazy. And we like did our thing, hooked it up, and it's the very first sequence is that insane like it's like a pop concert and there's
yeah,
like fucking yeah, she's singing. There's guitars. It's crazy. It's just like in your face, like kind of that K-pop. And my sister and I just looked at each other. And we were just like, "Whoa, like this is fucking cool." And then you're on stage, and like the very first thing you do is you get to fight this character. And we were just like, even my mom was like, "All right, like this is pretty cool. Like everybody looks cute." And then when they taught us the thing where you could like change your dress sphere or whatever, and they do like that whole Sailor Moon esque sequence of transforming your clothes, I was like, I am in it. I want to play this. This is the best thing I've ever seen in my life.
yep.
That has always and forever been my number one absolute favorite game.
Yeah, I have not watched a single Let's Play or anything on Final Fantasy X-2 because I'm holding out hope that there's a way that we can do a Let's Play for the Talking Smack YouTube channel.
And with me playing it. Your favorite part is going to be there's a mission that involves massage, and I will leave it at that.
Oh.
So I'm very, very close to beating 10. I just have to decide whether or not I'm gonna like stick to my guns and really go for like getting like the auto life ability and all that stuff. But in order to do that, I'm gonna have to get through the monster hunter arena or monster not hunter what the monster arena and like level up, which is just not really a thing I do in video games. I'm not someone who is crazy into grinding. It's just really not my thing.
Yeah.
All right, Matt, you got anything else you're doing?
Yeah, I got a couple things I can mention. I've been really into Doctor Who lately.
Ooh,
Doctor Who, we all love Doctor Who.
love Doctor Who.
There's a couple
I'm
reasons.
indifferent.
Well,
Get
it's
out of
good.
this podcast.
There's a couple reasons that I've been really into it lately. The thing I think that sort of not re-sparked my interest, but had sort of was the catalyst for all this is that I'll do another shout out. There's a small YouTube channel that I follow. It's called Clever Dick Films, and it's because his name is Richard. It's not a cheeky joke. Don't be weird. Anyway, his entire thing, he's like a Doctor Who super fan, and he does these very occasional, because they're very in depth, retrospectives of the entire show, and he breaks it down by like each incarnation of the Doctor. So his most recent one that came out a few weeks ago is about Matt Smith as the 11th Doctor. And I was watching that because I watch them all when they come out, and I'm like, oh, actually, like a lot of this is like really good. So that put me in a whole like mood where my wife and I have we had started watching from the beginning of the revival, the 2005 revival, a while ago. She had never seen it. I have seen most of it. And so like we picked that up again. We've been watching a lot of it. We're in the David Tennant era right now, which is great.
The best.
Beautiful. Hand chef's kiss. But then also I never finished the last season, this most recent one of the Jodie Whittaker era. So I've been like, and her last episode like also sort of coincided with this video coming out. So I was like seeing a lot about that and like sort of the regeneration and stuff. So I was like, oh, I got to catch up on that. I also discovered this service called Pluto TV.
Oh yes,
Uh,
Pluto.
yeah, if you've never heard of it, it is just like a streaming service that has like some old TV shows on demand, but it has a lot of like they call them channels. It's basically like live TV, but a lot of them are just for like one single thing. Like there's a Star Trek channel that often shows Next Generation and original series just around the clock. They also have one for classic Doctor Who. So like you just tune in and you roll the dice. What are you going to get? So between like that guy's videos and like the stuff I haven't seen and the stuff my wife hasn't seen and then this old shit, I'm just like totally Doctor Who pilled right now. It's good.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, you don't care.
I do. I do. I'm like, oh, I haven't watched. I watched it. I rewatched it, and then I think I got through like all most of the Matt Smith stuff, but I never ended up finishing it.
It
But that's
is,
what
I
I.
think,
It's just good.
yeah, all that stuff to date is on HBO Max. If you haven't, if you're curious, I think, it's not, doesn't, it's, this most recent season was the 13th since the revival. So it doesn't maintain all that quality the entire time, but like, for the most part, it's good. It's fun. If nothing else, like the cast is always on point. Um, Before my wife left for Thanksgiving, we watched like there was like a string of episodes in the third season, like the second David Tennant year, um, which is just bangers on bangers on bangers, including the episode Blink, which is
Oh yeah.
one I think one of the more famous ones. It's the one that introduces the weeping angels that you know,
I know that reference.
yeah, they freeze in place as long as you're looking at them, but if you look away, you blink, whatever, then they can move, and that's how they kill you. So like,
Like the ghosts in Mario.
yeah, yeah, only slightly scarier. So just like such a run of banger episodes that we're in right now. So yeah, chef's kiss.
Chef's kiss.
What else you got now? I could talk about more shit, but if you got more stuff, let's hear it.
For me, speaking of HBO Max, the other day I was trying to kill some time before the family and I had to go out and just go do a family thing. I put on DC's League of Super Pets because I've been meaning to check it out just because I was interested in it in out of curiosity than anything, because it's a movie about animals, but it's also the DC Super Pets. So it like, is it going to go more into like the stereotypical like, oh, dogs lick their butts and it's funny, ha 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 ha,
I
or
mean,
is it? And
that
I've
is
heard people say that it's like the Spider-Verse animated movie that DC needed, and I'm like, there's no possible way it's that. It's definitely not that. It's it's
Okay.
enjoyable. It's fun, but there are still those moments of like, hey, look, that dog's licking its butt. Ha 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 ha.
to be fair, that shit is fucking funny.
Like there's a literal moment where Kevin Hart as Ace, the dog that eventually goes to Batman, he's like, I lick myself all day. It's amazing. It's great. It's like, great, yeah, I get it. Dogs and animals lick themselves. Uh-huh. But there's also like this turtle that gets super speed because obviously
Duh.
writers didn't really strain themselves with that one. But the turtle randomly out of nowhere just starts swearing.
Oh,
So like, so, and this is a PG movie, so it's like really out of nowhere. Like once they get their powers, the turtle decides that it's going to go make a run for it, and it's not expecting to go near light speed, and it ends up like in a prairie just outside of Metropolis, and it's like, where the bleep am I? And just like, what?
that
That's
that's
like,
super
that was not
fun.
established with this character beforehand.
That's
And then
not
there
just
was
like a thing.
they only do it 3 times. The first time is the where the bleep am I, and then the other one is just another offhanded like, oh, what the bleep is happening here with this guy. And then the third time I don't remember, but like I was expecting it at that point, but it was still just like so out of nowhere. But one thing that I it was, but it's a fun movie. I will say it's fun. I don't know that I would necessarily say it's like go out and see it, but if you have nothing better to do with your time, it's fun. But Diego Luna is also in this, who plays
All right.
Cassian Andor. He plays a squirrel with lightning powers,
Okay,
and I
interesting.
believe he ends up becoming the Green Lantern's super pet.
Oh, why is that part? Why that part is like really cute to me. I'm like, yeah, super cute. And it sounds like, well, what is the other pet movie that Kevin Hart was in? Because apparently that's his thing.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, that's the Secret Life of
Secret
Pets.
of Pets. Okay, I think Emily must have been young enough that it was like she wanted to go see that, and I agreed to go, thinking like this is not gonna be good. This is gonna be a terrible movie. It was not a good movie, but I also laughed until I cried at 3 times during that movie because they just put in those parts where you're like, what? What were they thinking? Like it doesn't fit at all in what's happening, but it's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, with Super Pets, it basically follows the Bolt formula, except
Yeah.
instead of him living this like delusional life, Crypto loses his powers, and then of course at the end of the movie he gets them back and he helps save the day because now they're the big super team of Super Pets. But it's just Matt, you'll appreciate this.
Are you saying
So
this movie is
the
about? I'm sorry, before I
no,
get that,
I
are you
this
saying this
this
movie is about
oh,
a big crypto crash?
it's about
Yes,
if
Okay, go ahead,
only.
sorry.
Well done, Matt. Well done. You get a golf clap for that one.
I can't hear it.
I heard it.
Uh, my new mic is too good, I guess. But yeah, Matt, you'll appreciate this. So Wonder Woman's pet at the end of the movie is she gets a pig,
Okay.
which
Yep.
is probably a reference to a Justice League Unlimited episode where Wonder Woman is turned into a pig, and Batman has to sing karaoke to save her.
What? Amazing.
So that's the only reason I can think of that they would give Wonder Woman a pet because I believe in the past she has had like a kangaroo as a pet.
Yeah,
Makes
or
sense.
like
Yep,
a
very
companion.
logical.
Yeah, Amazonian kangaroo. Yeah,
I got it.
they had to obviously make it a little bit more it fit more into the aesthetic of the city that they're living in. Like, okay, yeah, maybe someone would have a pig as a pet because all these pets, Ace, the squirrel, I'm forgetting their names because like I don't think they ever really say them, but like they're all living in a pound essentially, and
Mm.
they make a really great joke about how kittens are never there too long, and there's a moment where the villain of the movie, which is a guinea pig, who has been altered by Lex Luthor, gets superpowers, and it sets the center on the pound on fire. And there's a kitten in the corner, and it's like she, as the guinea pig's leaving, she's saying like, "I'm not going to save you. Why the hell would I save you?" And then the kitten's like, "Oh, are you going to save me?" And she's like, "Of course, I'm not a monster." And then
No.
she like telepathies out the kitten with her, and the kitten comes back as a henchman, but it's got a little kid voice, so it's saying stuff like, "I'll see you in heck." Like there's little moments of a lot of fun, and John Krasinski is Superman, Keanu Reeves is Batman, which I think those are some great castings, especially in the way that they're presenting them. And it is a really fun movie, but again, I don't know that it's a movie I would say like, oh yeah, go out and see it.
Well,
Yeah, it's on HBO
I'm
Max
not
now.
adding it to my list.
But if nothing else, the performances are mostly fun. I didn't catch that one, Rebecca. Sorry.
I said I'm not adding it to my list. That one doesn't pass.
No, I wouldn't. Again, I wouldn't say like go out of your way to see it. But if you've got nothing better to do with your night and you're like, I don't know what else to watch, like maybe give that one a try. Turn it off after the first like 15-20 minutes if you're not into it.
Didn't do that. You know what? I almost did that with when they redid Jumanji. I was like, I will
Those
give
ones are
this.
not terrible.
The teenage actors are so unbelievably horrible. The first whatever 20 minutes, whatever amount of time
You only
that
have to deal
it's
with them for 30 minutes of a
yes, it
100-minute movie. It's
yeah.
fine.
That's what I was like, listen, I can't watch this. This is unwatchable. It's so bad and so tacky. And then the person I watched it with was like, just wait, like wait until we actually see like the actors, like that's like the whole point of the reason we watched that movie. And god damn, those are both excellent movies. I will rewatch those a lot. I think they're both really good.
Is it Joe Jonas that shows up in those? Like out of
Yes,
nowhere?
he is. Yeah, he's a random one out of nowhere. He's the kid that like gets stuck in it. But it's just good. Like everyone does a good job. And then in the second one, I didn't think it was gonna be as good, but I think The Rock pretending to be Danny DeVito is good. It was good.
Yes.
But when Aquafina then becomes Danny DeVito, she does such an amazing. I was not expecting her to be as good as she was because like the kid with the curly hair, I can't even think of his name. He's like, yeah, he's kind of squirrely and he's like, I don't want to be in trouble. I'm like this big nerd. So her playing him, excellent, well done. She does a great job. She like matches his like personality so good. And then yeah, when they kind of do the switch up thing and she becomes Dane DeVito, she is so good. She does an amazing job. And then I also felt
Is
kind of
it
bad. Who's the girl? Karen
Karen
Gillian.
Karen
Gillan,
Gillan?
who's on
So
Doctor Who.
they basically didn't let her be anybody else because she obviously could not do it. That I was like, yeah, she does not have much range as far as like these other guys do.
Well, you also needed someone to be the anchor to help with the twist of the other characters not going where they thought they would go. But like I thought that was it Kevin Hart got to emulate Danny Glover? I thought
Yes,
Kevin Hart did a really good job with
he
that.
did such a good job. They did a good job. Those were both very enjoyable. And then the horse, of course.
Of course. Matt, let's give you one more what you doing, and then if yours is not the same as mine, we'll do that and we'll call it a day.
Yeah, mine I think almost certainly is not the same. I'll just real quick go because you know, I got to be me, and I'm going to talk real quickly about a recent comic that I picked up that I thought was pretty good, despite me thinking it being unsure if it would be, and that is the first issue of the new IDW Star Trek ongoing comic book series. Like I said,
Oh,
I got to be me.
I gotta be me. We would not ask any less.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I say that I wasn't sure if it would be just because I've read a fair amount of like IDW licensed comics in the past, some Star Trek, some others. Most of the time, I don't think they're very good. This book, only the first issue's out. I think the second issue might be out by the time this comes out. I think it's imminent, but it's written by Jackson Lanzig and Colin Kelly, who I'm not very familiar with, and drawn by an artist named Ramon Rosanas. I apologize for mispronouncing that. I'll gloss over it just because I don't want to spoil Star Trek Deep Space Nine, which is great and you should watch it. But it picks up several years after the end of that show and is addressing like probably the main dangling thread that show leaves. And it is about Captain Ben Sisko setting off on a mission to do some stuff with a ragtag team of characters from across various Star Trek shows. And at least the first issue is a very interesting setup that I'm very interested to see where it goes and is beautifully drawn. I've seen a lot of Ramon's artwork in like, I want to say like Marvel and DC stuff in the past, and it is always really gorgeous. I won't belabor the point too much, just 'cause I know I've ranted a lot this episode in good ways, but
What?
um,
No, you never.
if you're a Star Trek person, if you like Star Trek, especially if you like Deep Space Nine, and you haven't heard of this, if you haven't read it, and you're a comic minded person, I would recommend it. By the time you hear this, there's probably at least a couple issues out.
All right. And then ending our what you doing, I'm gonna go with the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special.
Yeah,
We've had a couple of years now of really great Christmas episodes. We had Ted Lasso's Christmas episode last year, and now this year we've got this holiday special, which anyone who has listened to this podcast should know that I am not a big fan of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which I know I'm in the wrong. It's just I can't get into it. I know why. It just doesn't appeal to me with the humor. So I was really skeptical about this holiday special. I was just like, geez, gonna be a bunch of overlong jokes and Kevin Bacon, I guess, after seeing the trailer. And it is so good. I loved this. The opening song with the old 97s, I don't know what Christmas is, but Christmas
yep,
Time is Here is fantastic. And everyone gives in a really good performance. This was filmed concurrently with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which is why the production quality looks pretty good. But overall, it was a really fun little Christmas holiday thing. And James Gunn did a great job with it. I really love the character development with Mantis, where she's kind of still like that little mousy kind of character, but she's become more forthcoming in knowing what she wants. So like there's a moment where Drax is like trying to debate whether or not he wants to help save Christmas for Peter or if he wants a little goodie. And he's like, I want the goodie. And Mantis just goes, no, you do not get to say that. This is not the point of this adventure. She's just so forceful with what she's trying to do. Like she knows what she wants and she's gonna go get it now. And instead of just being like this character that's like, "You think I'm ugly? Thank you."
Yeah, it's really cute. It's a brisk like 45 minutes, I think, and I watched it. I think Friday night. I think is when it came out, and it's very, very, very nice, very cute. Manta said a cab. Anything that has, like I think I said this on our Discord, which you should join.
Hey,
Anything.
I've tried.
I'm not talking specifically to you, but yes, you should. Anything that has a Fountains of Wayne needle drop is good by me.
Oh yes. What Fountains of Wayne song?
Well, I guess I don't want to spoil it, but if you think about Christmas Special and Fountains of Wayne, there's really only one song it could be.
Oh, okay, all right.
And if you
Fountains of
don't
Wayne
want
is
to watch it,
underrated.
James Gunn has put out an image of the soundtrack. So if you want to know what songs are in it, you can do that
Yeah.
as well. I believe there are a couple of playlists on Spotify as well. But yeah, the entire soundtrack is a banger, as they say.
Yeah.
And
All right, you saying that was really weird, but
yeah, I know. That's
I
why I said
loved
it.
it.
Fountains of
That's the
Wayne
joke, Rebecca.
is really underrated. I just want to say they rule.
Right?
I once saw when I was in college. I saw them once in a dive bar in Chicago, and
Sounds
me and
fucking
my girlfriend at the
awesome.
time, like, all my friends, were like the youngest people there by at least like 15 years. But they rule. They're great.
I also just don't know how on the
And
same album they have Stacy's Mom and Hey Julie, which is arguably one of the cutest fucking songs on the planet. And then you have
yeah, and Hey
Stacy's
Julie's not
Mom.
bad either.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Stacey's
Hey
mom
Julie,
fucking
Stacy's mom obviously fucking rules, but then like Hey Julie is so cute. I'm like, what? How is this the same band? I do love them.
Hmm.
Sorry, Josh. I veered us off path. This is it's very cute, and you should watch it. It's short.
Yes.
It's
Yeah,
short.
and
Yeah, if
that's
it's
all I
short,
really need to say because
I'm
it's
into
it's
that.
30 minutes. You don't want to spoil it. But the only thing I will say that if anything bothered me about this is I don't know if they got Karen Gillian. I think it's Karen Gillan. I don't know if they actually got her in. Nebula looks weird to me. Like she's never on screen for too long, and she just seems to act a little differently than what we've seen with Endgame and the Guardians movies. And it felt a little off to me. Like I don't know if she was off the days they were filming or what, because most of her dialogue seems to be ADR, so it just felt different to me
Yeah, I could see a
with
situation where they
Nebula.
had to film her. Okay, well, I wasn't here, so let's just film a couple insert shots so I'm around.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then there's like one shot of her dancing, which looks great, and I believe that is supposed to be Karen Gillan, but it just every other time she's not really in the movie or in the little special very often, but just everything feels like the wardrobe just looks a little off, her proportions look a little off, it doesn't look like her. So it was that was like the only thing that really kind of took me out of it. Everything else is like, Christmas, I love Christmas, I'm here for it.
Which I also, as a big Christmas fan, I'm like, yeah, I'm here for that.
Well, Becky, now you have some stuff to watch for the rest of the day.
Yes, when I have my internet. I'll get it figured out. Moving's hard, you guys.
All right. Well, I think with that, we will call it a wrap. We'll end on the holiday spirit lifter. And Matt, we don't share your socials. Becky, we actually had to cut your socials because the audio cut out like the last 5 minutes of our conversation from our Hallmark movie challenge, which thank you everyone for listening to that. I wasn't entirely sure how people would react to it because it's kind of off brand for us, but everyone seems to be really enjoying it. So I appreciate the love that we've been getting for that episode. And Ricky is very embarrassed by its success. So please keep
Aww.
listening to it. And if you like it enough, maybe she'll come back and we'll make it an annual thing.
Yes, I would totally do that because it's so
So
cute.
Becky, with us not being able to share your socials last week, would you like to share them this week?
Oh, yeah. If you want to see a lot of dog, um, I'm nope. As I was saying it, just cut all that. Steven, cut that. Cut that. Matt probably gets that reference. Steven, got it.
I get it.
Let's start that over again. Oh, yeah. So I make and do fun embroidery hoops from the very sweet to the very nerdy at No Coast Threads on Instagram. So if you go there, you can check out some of the stuff I've been working on. I have a fabulous winter holiday idea coming up that will be my return gift for Josh and Ricky. So I'm excited about that.
In lieu of my socials, real quick, I just want to reiterate real quick the couple things I shouted out. A More Civilized Age podcast, Star Wars, Clone Wars, Andor, very good. Clever Dick Productions, if you're interested in some weird, nerdy, deep dive Doctor Who videos. Thank you. That's all. Goodbye.
You can you can follow me on Twitter at Josh_Scar. You can follow the podcast at Talking Smack Pod. The Talking Smack Pod is also now on Hive Social because Twitter is a sinking ship. So probably got to find a new social outlet for us. We are on Facebook as well, which Alex maintains. You can email us at tsmackpod@gmail.com. Thank you to Leo Allen for our musical themes. Thank you to Beppo and Retro Ale Studios for our avatars. Please like, subscribe, rate, review the podcast wherever you listen. And we don't have any new reviews to read as of this time. So
I have one last
nothing
question
new
for
there.
the listeners.
Sure.
When I was just losing my mind ranting in this episode, just going off, just minutes and minutes of me interrupted talking about things I love. Did you like that? Would you like to
Yes.
see it in text form every single day? If so, join our Discord.
I love
Why do I not have the Discord in here?
You can watch me rant in real time, sometimes mostly about things I love, sometimes about things I don't. It's always paragraphs and paragraphs, and you can get in on it. Come on in.
Come on in.
Matt gave me a really great TED talk about a guy with a magic shotgun in Spider-Man that helped Norman Osborn see the error of his ways and retire the Green Goblin moniker.
Yeah,
it was great.
It's the revived Sin Eater, the guy that eats all your sin by shooting you with a magic shotgun.
Comics are awesome.
Comics are fucking awesome. You can get away with so much fucking shit in there. I love it.
That's the kind of stuff you only get if you join
The Discord. All right, I'm going to figure mine out today and figure out why it wasn't working.
Perfect. I'll see you there.
And you'll get to talk to Becky too, who will just continuously share dog pictures and share her love of Final Fantasy X too.
Perfect. Beautiful.
Baby, who said I have a dog?
You did.
You every moment of every opportunity.
He's so cute.
With that, thank you everyone for listening. Take care. Happy holidays. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh God, what a disaster. Terrible.
Watch Andor.
Watch Andor.
Watch
I am okay because I kind of saw it. I was like, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? They're making another goddamn Star Wars about somebody who's dead, so it like doesn't even matter. And then when I was like, oh wait, but I love
this is
that
a whole new
guy.
bit.
Yeah, I love that guy. So I was like, all right, you know what? Like, I could get it. I could kind of see what his backstory is, but I'm gonna be sad the whole time because he's dead.
Don't worry about that.
But how does he go from a thief to a guy who wants to give his life for the better of the world? That is a very compelling. I'm into it.
I'm gonna just like cut that whole bit out and put it at the end of Matt's rant.
I don't call it a rant. Call it a informed, one-sided soliloquy of Star Wars.
I like soliloquy. Soliloquy is a good word.
You can't go
Matt
spiking
is a
stuff in the
soliloquist.
dodgy episode. This is good post-credits content. Watch Andor.
Fair enough.
Me and the dog.